artists for coming out. And just want to give you guys a few quick guidelines. Please no recording or photos of any kind during the presentation. You're free to take photos after the presentation. Restrooms are upstairs, and please silence your cell phones. So, like I said, I'm excited to share this film. I'm glad I got to see it. I just saw it like last night, actually. It just came out, so I'm glad. I think most of you have probably seen this film, but if not, definitely go out to see it. And I'm excited to share this, all the inspiration that they're gonna show to you guys today. So yeah, quick warning. I don't know how much spoilers there will be, but there may be a few. We're gonna start with a show and tell portion. And after that, we're going to do a Q&A with myself, and we'll take some questions from you guys as well. And after that, we'll take a short restroom break, and then we'll go straight into the signing. And during the signing part, your position in your seat is basically your position in line, and we'll just go from row to row, and we'll call you up so you guys don't have to stand up and line up. All right, and with that, I'd like to first give a warm welcome to all our presenters. We have director, co-writer, and producer Henry Selick.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Character designer Pablo Lobato.
Hi everybody.
And illustrator Kenny Lenocito. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic to Henry Selick.
Thank you for coming today. I hope you enjoy the presentation of these two incredible artists. I'm going to just talk about the movie for a moment. It's actually inspired by my own grown sons. 20 years ago, when they were little demons, I did a sketch of them with horns. And then I wrote a short story, just 7 pages. And most of the characters that ended up in the film are characters that I came up with way back then. Cat Elliot, Raoul, Cocolato, Father Bess, Sister Helly, the demons, of course, and the dead that are raised in the film to make money. But it was just something I put aside for a number of years. It wasn't really a plan to do anything with it. And then some years later, in 2012, the amazing Key and Peele show premiered on Comedy Central. You know, I think the 2 best sketch comics ever, in my life anyway. Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele were creative partners on this show that explored everything. You know, they could play anybody. They had the most flexibility, very bold, always surprising. And by the 3rd season, I just had this thought, I have got to work with those two. What have I got? I've got my demon story, Wendell and Wild, Key and Peele. So I reached out. They heard of me, which is always helpful. But then Jordan wanted to meet face to face. This is 2015. And it turned out he knew everything about stop motion animation. He himself had actually studied puppetry in college. And I did my pitch, and he read the pages, and then we met again, and he said he'd really like to do more than a voice. He told me about his new company he was forming when the season was going to be over for Key and Peele, Monkey Paw Productions, and the type of films they were going to make, and that he'd always wished to see someone like himself in an animated film when he was a kid. Loved animation, but where am I? And I was totally sold. I thought he'd be a really good partner to have, a creative partner. He became co-writer. You know, we mainly developed the story from that original little sketch of 7 pages, grew the characters. You know, his idea was to shift the protagonist, which had been Sister Helly, to Cat. It was his idea she should be a person of color. I got to choose. I chose African American. I thought that would be best. And he was someone who just brought this amazing worldview to the film, and he always had a sense of the right balance of elements, really avoiding red flags that are unnecessary, avoiding putting things in there that haters could grab onto to attack the film. And it did take a number of years, and of course he had to go off and make a little movie called Get Out. But after that, I just rode his coattails to set the movie up at Netflix, and we got a great deal. We wanted it to be PG-13 so that we had the flexibility to go there. These many years later, we've got the film out. People seem to like it. It's in one theater in the LA area. It's also on Netflix on October 28th. Before Pablo does his presentation, I was asked to just talk about him a little bit. The whole reason I reached out to Pablo is because I think he's the best and most artistic caricaturist in the world, and has been for a long time. I always had this idea as I developed the project with Jordan that the demons would be caricatures of Key and Peele. I sort of saw it as a new way to envision what they'd been doing on their show. Well, neither of them were convinced. They thought it could be kind of dumb. They might look stupid. But I knew of Pablo's work, and we made this connection. He happened to be coming to LA, and I was there at the same time, and I talked about the project. And I basically promised Key and Peele, no, they're going to be great. And then he started doing early preliminary work, and then shared it with them, and they loved what he did. It was just, I won them over. And then, by the way, we have 60 other characters we'd like you to design. But his work speaks for itself. I'm so fortunate that he was interested in learning about animation, and he did far more than simple designs of the characters. He ended up doing key poses, key expressions. I mean, he kept going the entire length of the production, contributing beautiful design to the film. This is Mr. Pablo Lobato.
Okay, thank you, Henry, very much. I don't deserve that. Okay. So here we go. It's like this, right? Okay. That's me in Buenos Aires, year 2016, before this madness begins. And I was at my studio with my dog. His name is Pixel. He was Pixel. He passed away. Don't worry, I have a new dog. It's better. So I was working on that, and that's my life. I work at my studio alone with my dog, and this is what I usually do. I do caricatures of famous people for magazines and newspapers around the world, but especially for here for America. So this is what I do: caricatures, like some kind of cubist thing, some kind of cubist meets pop, something like this. When I draw what I like most of them are musicians, but I have assignments, so I have to draw these other guys too. So, but this is strong shapes, geometrical things, bold colors, things like that. And this illustration, they are always still; they don't move. So this is my work, and you have here another example. I show this because these are my greatest hits. This Prince illustration, and I did this LeBron James and Kobe Bryant for Nike. So that was my life until I received an email from a guy called Henry Selick, And my first thought was, okay, this guy has the same name, exactly the same name as the director of Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline. And I check the email, and it happens to be the Henry Selick. So then I thought, okay, he must be wrong. He must confuse why he's calling me. I don't know. I'm not an animator. I'm not a character designer. I know nothing, but nothing, zero about animation. I love animation, but I love watching films. I'm a viewer. So he told me, I was going to be at CTN, and Henry was going to be there too. So he told me, okay, let's meet there. And I say, okay, yes. And this is the picture I take of Henry 4 years ago when we met for the first time. More. 2016. Okay, yeah, 6 years. Oh my God. So of course, I was such a fan. So I said, please, can I take a photo? And I give her my books. They are holding. Here is holding me my books. So we met there. I tried to convince her that I was not the guy he was looking for, but he said, no, it's you. So he talked me about the movie, and I really loved the idea. And I said, yes, let's go for it. And so he told me about these Demon Brothers and the idea of the whole movie. So that was me trying a new adventure, and he talked me a lot about Key and Peele, of course. So the first thing I did when I went back to Buenos Aires was to download illegally all the episodes of Key and Peele. I say illegally because there were no, they don't air this show in Buenos Aires. So I managed to see all the episodes of the 3 seasons, and I laugh a lot, of course. And here we are. Henry told me specifically about this sketch. You know, these guys that are on a plane and they are like terrifying. So I start working on them. I saw all the episodes and I drew them like, I don't know, 4 months, drawing them all day long. So, but we have to show them the illustrations. So the first thing I did was this thing, you know? This looks kind of like Key and Peele. I kind of a flatter illustration. You know, you can be banned if you see this. And because Henry was, in the meantime, Henry was trying to convince them to use his caricatures. But while Henry was showing them this illustration, I was doing this, that are not that flatter. So we convinced them, actually Henry convinced them to be in the movie as caricatures. So in the meantime, I was doing this, and finally we got to do these first demons. It was kind of a challenge for me, but it was also kind of easy because I had a lot of reference material, because, you know, 3 seasons of a lot of sketches with all the expressions there. So, and this particular sketch of the terrorists is the name of the sketch. So we did these ones at first, and then we had to do the version of they in the real world that are kind of softer. And that was a good beginning. You know, it was kind of easy for me that in my first experience as a character designer. But then we had to do cut, and that was a problem. I thought it was going to be a problem. Henry sent me a couple of pictures by email. He told me about this Afro-punk movement, and he saw me and he sent me these pictures of young girls, rebel and sad, things like that. And I was, at this time, I was very concerned on how this flat image I do could be translated into a 3D, because I was thinking, okay, they are going to make puppets with this. And I don't know how they are going to do, because my illustrations are very, very flat. So I started to, as I told you, my work has something like a cubist thing. So I say, okay, let's see what the cubist guys did with 3D. So I check out a lot of illustrations, a lot of sculptures of Picasso, for example. And then I remember Picasso was very influenced by African mask. So I take a look there, and I found these beautiful designer sculptures, very, very stylish, very, very bold, very geometrical things too. Okay, it can be related to my work. So I have to combine these two things, the rebel girls and the African ancient mask. So, but if you see here, this one, the first mask, it kind of look like that. So I have to take her to the modern age. So this is my first sketches of the masks, and I show them to Henry, and Henry say, okay, this is cat. So it was not that complicated. And then, well, I went to the computer and I did these first illustrations of cat, and then the version of cat as a younger girl in his, in his punk outfit and in the Parisian outfit. So that was cat. Then we have to move on designing, like, how many characters are we have in the movie? I don't know.
Like 60, 30 more complicated ones.
Yeah, a lot of work. So let's go with Sister Haley. Henry gave me two different words for this. It was not a very easy words to combine. It was ninja and nun. So, okay. So actually, Henry does that all the time. He gave me teddy bear and evil, for example, and it's the priest dead. So, well, you have to manage. But no, of course, Henry gave me a lot of tips about how to do this ninja nun Sister Haley. So I did these poses, like Sister Haley in action, and I like it. We try a different hairdos for Sister Haley, even when in any part of the movie you can see his hair, but Henry wanted to know how he was his hair, so we try, a little very short hair and this kind of afro thing, and the, I don't know how you call it, rodete, I don't know, and this Grace Jones look, and finally the second one was the chosen one, and we like it that he could be in her habits, but there's a couple, how you say, a bang here, meaning that she's not that structured as a nun. So let's go with Father Bess. With Father Bess, we try like a lot of different things. We use some actors as reference, so you can see, maybe you can recognize any of them. That's Jorge, yeah. I'm not giving names, but of course we went for James Hong. Actually, he's the voice of the character, But we try, you know, everything, everything. And there's part of this. There's lots more of this.
James Holland was happy to be characters. We have to get permission or something.
Yeah, of course. So this is the final Father Best, and after his makeup out with by Key and Peele, by Wendell&Wild, and this is we try different makeups too. Also we try. This is not here, but we try also a kiss, a kiss makeup. You know, he looks like Gene Simmons. Let's go with Belzer. This is the first sketches we did of Belzer. It was so funny to do. Henry sent me some pictures of big guys. It was so funny. Here, this one was Henry Rollins, you know, the musician. Henry find this way to give me direction that is very cool. He gives me a couple of names of famous people because it is my thing, you know, I'm a caricature artist. So instead of saying, okay, let's please invent a new face, they say, okay, I want to mix between this guy and this guy. So that was so fun to do. We have here the expressions of Belzer. This was a challenge for me because I'm not used to do expressions, but I think it was so funny. It was kind of ridiculous too, showing me, you know, with a mirror, trying to put faces and drawing them, but I did it like that. So what we have here, Belzer is kind of a mix between Barry White and Elvis Presley, something like that. We use these Elvis glasses, and we put, of course, a V instead of an E in the glasses. Here's a mix of a lot of different characters. This is Cat's parents when they are dead. And this is the nuns. They should look like penguins. That's the direction. That's the direction of Henry. That was so very fun to do these demons in shards. Well, kind of the third one kind of look like me, right? And this is I can't pronounce his name. Henry is the name of the woman, the evil woman. And of course, Manberg and Mrs. Hunter. Very different things, you know, and it was really fun to do this thing. The words for Manberg was Israeli and Marlon Brando. You know, the two words that Henry gave me. This is Raoul. As we, following the same logic that we use with Cat, that using a African mask for his face, I take a look at Mexican mask too. So because you know Raúl has like a Spanish heritage, so we base it on some sculptures of Mexico, of ancient Mexico. And this is Raúl walking, and of course you know some expressions and the way he looks before. And this is the first pencils when I have learned a little about the expressions. Okay, let's go with the next one. This is so fun to do. You know, I have to do these 6 skeletons because in some part of the movie you have a character unburied these skeletons. So I have to draw them as skeletons, but then I have to draw them with customs. So there were the skeletons with custom and makeup. And then it kind of, we were done with the movie, And a couple of months later, I received an email from Henry saying, we have to do these skeletons you did before, but as they look when they were alive. So we have to, it was like, you know, the normal direction will be to illustrate the people alive and then the skeleton. So I have to put flesh on those guys. Okay, let's see what happens. And I did this one. There actually are in the movie, in some part of the movie, is going to be the illustration. These illustrations. So he was a sailor and a maraja. This guy, you know, he loves horses. I don't know, a jockey, a hunter, and this rich guy and this military guy. So fun to do. And then we have to Henry told me about these souls of the damned that are in the movie. And my first attempt was this. You know, very spooky. I have a lot of pictures of mummies and you know, these guys that died in Pompeii, you know. So my first attempt was that, but Henry told me, okay, no, this is not the right thing because these are bodies, you know. We don't need bodies. We need souls. They don't have flesh. They don't have bones. So we had to do something different to that.
Let's take a question about the work from what we've seen so far. So to summarize, it's sort of like, what is your process for designing characters?
Okay, in the particular case of the skeletons, what I did was I have to draw 6 of them. So what I did was, okay, let's try them to look different one of each other. They are actually, I cannot tell the difference between a skeleton and another skeleton in the reality. You know, they look all the same for me. So, but as a designer, what I did was, okay, let's them look different one to each other. So one is based on a circle, and the other one is based on a square, and the other is a triangle, and the other one is a combination of that, and one is long and narrow, and the other one is wide. So that's what I did in that case. And I don't have a process for all the characters. Actually, you know, I'm improvising here. I know nothing about animation or character design. So I did a different thing in each character. And you know, some of them are inspired in real people, and some are a mix of them. And some, like these skeletons, are, you know, based on geometrical things and things like that. But you know, it's always very, very good to draw a skeleton. It's always very fun. You know, every kid is drawing skeletons since they are kids, and me too. So, well, that was the last one. You know, when Henry told me that they need not to have flesh or bones, I came up with this. Okay, I say, okay, they are not made of flesh or bones, and I don't know what they are made of. So I did this ethereum thing, you know, with transparencies and things like that, very, very soft with movements, because they are flying in the space or in hell, I don't know. And so I did this, but as I tell you, I don't know what they are made of. But Henry has to make them of something. So I don't know, it's not my problem. So I gave him this illustration, he liked them. Okay, so let's see what they do in this. And I saw the film for the first time a couple of days ago in the premiere. So then I saw what they did, and I found out what are they made of. They are made of paper, and that looks great, really great. So, well, this is my experience my first experience as a character designer, and hope you like it. And yeah, let's see if you have any questions. And thank you, Henry, again for the opportunity. You know, that was great.
Kenny was brought on to the project. A little later on, we actually had a very talented production designer at the start, Lou Romano. And he did a fair amount of work, but Lou had to leave. He had medical problems. And so we struggled for a bit, trying to replace him with a few different people, never quite finding someone that could step up. Kenny was hired primarily as an illustrator, but he proved to be so much more. He was able to plug in to what Lou had done, which Lou's work was it connected very well with what Pablo was doing, and so Kenny had both of those artists to soak in, and he quickly stepped up and honestly became the new production designer, even if he doesn't have that title, and designed so much of our world, objects, props. Anyway, he has an incredible sense of shape, form, and color, and depth. And I'd love to present Kenny Lenocito and his work.
That is so sweet, thank you. Oh my God, I'm actually really touched. Thank you so much, Henry. My heart is glowing with warmth and love. Before we get started with my presentation.
He's not a cynic. This is real Kenny. He is the unicorn.
Well, if everyone can check their phones, to those who have seen, it's time to be real. And do you know what be real is? I want to take a be real before I do anything. Hold on. Sorry, I have to do this. Okay. Everyone, do like this or something, okay? I'm gonna screw up. You know what be real is? It's like a photo session. And that'll do something. It's like, okay.
What should I do?
So it'll take a front camera. We have 2 minutes. Okay. Hold on. Let me just angle it. This will be the angle, okay? And then there. Slay. Takes the front photo and it takes the back. No. Thank you. All right, now that we're all loosened up. Oh my God. Pablo, your file is here. Look. It was right after mine. It was hidden. It's okay. All right, anyways. Hi. I'm Kenny, and I'm one of the illustrators of Wendell&Wild. This is my little presentation about the art that I was very fortunate to contribute. Okay, so as you know, as I've said like maybe 20 times, I'm from Canada, and I've lived there most of my life in the suburbs of southern Ontario. And prior to getting onto Wendell&Wild, I had literally freshly graduated from Sheridan College's animation program in 2019, and I'd finished my thesis film, Portrait of a Lady. And I'm just out there twiddling my thumbs, oh my God, will I have a job? Fortunately, I was really lucky to have been reached out by one of my previous PDs for a film to, oh my Lord, what's happening out here? Don't look at that part yet, sorry. To test for the film, and I lunged at the chance to work on a Netflix stop-motion feature with Henry as a director. Oh my God. Wait, how many people out here are not from America? Oh my God. Oh my God, that's fantastic. How many out here are from Canada? All right. Anyways. um, so coming in, I knew I would be working under the previous PD, Katie Wu, alongside illustrators like Jen Ely, and I'd be making work following after Lou Romano. So I had very big shoes to fill. And as far as influences, at the start of production, we had looked at traditional African-American quilts, Afropunk, Afrofuturism to help inspire the fun shape language, the organic qualities and geometric qualities from the visuals. On top of that, I would be creating illustration and environments that would suit the amazing designs of Pablo Lobato and his pop cubist sensibilities. I hope the presenter notes are on this, because there is going to be a bunch of things. Yes, there's presenter notes. So, oh yes, feel free to ooh and ah at the next few things. It'll make me feel better. The amazing artists around me really helped guide me in creating the work that I'm still very proud of today. I was honestly very nervous at first because this is my first gig coming out of animation school, but my mentors around me, art directors, production designers, the fabricators, the friends I made, Henry, helped create a setting that felt known to me. So here are some shots of Rust Bank, a dilapidated town setting in the world of Wendell and Wild. So we looked at like withered cities in like the North Midwest, AKA Detroit. But I also think, because I was starting out, I looked at a lot of things that were familiar to me, like the streets of Toronto. This is one of my favorite paintings for this, by the way. So yeah, I really ate this one up, guys. The process of working in stop motion was an ongoing collaboration with the many amazing art directors and fabrication people at the studio. I would be able to, like, from the paint, so there was like two ways this conversation was going artistically. So it would be one part where like, I'm like, la-di-da-di-da, here's a drawing. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then they like make something from the drawing. And it'd be like, oh my God, it's happening. I would literally like walk into like the art department room or the art, there was different rooms. And one of the art rooms, or all the art, it was called the Ivory Tower. Or it was nicknamed the, oh my God, Henry, you know? And because we had one skylight, and it was very nice. Anyways, we were there, and I'd go in, and I'd be like, oh my God, you guys are really building this thing. This is wild. But then the other way, aside from me drawing and then them making the thing, I would look at what they were making, and then I would draw something from that. Very cool. It is really different. It hits different. You know, like when you're working in CG or for a CG project or a 2D project, it's like, you know, it's all nice and all. But when they're actually like 3D things like in front of you, like they built that thing, I'm like, damn, what the heck? That's amazing. So yeah, I felt very lucky to have been on a show for as long as I did, getting to know the town of Rust Bank and all of its dark corners. And then peek into what lurks inside of them. Ooh. Each time, trying to pull out the lovely colors that would come out of each unique space, like the fluorescence of a food cart. Yum, 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 yum. Or the dingy glow of a boiler room. Letting way into the haunting green light of the supernatural. And then transitioning into more comforting spaces like the home of a single mom. Woohoo! Motherhood. Who is finding a way of getting justice for her town. This is the B plot, guys. And providing for her son. I love this piece, by the way. You see him sadly eating soup? That was me, alone in my in my studio apartment in Portland. In a fairy tale that was just as fantastical and spooky, I was able to pull out and explore a known coziness in vignettes of comfort and warmth. Why is this? Oh, yeah. But exploring the city of Rustbank eventually led me into one of the titular settings of Wendell and Wild. One that happens to be my favorite. Ooh, where are we going? And there's a reason why this setting happens to be my favorite. A setting that I felt most qualified to help design as a survivor of the Canadian Catholic school system and someone familiar with religious suffering. This is me. This is me in high school. I went to a Catholic high school. I went to Catholic school all my life except for college. Yeah, I'm a survivor, you guys. So this is my favorite Rustbank Catholic, a derelict academy for girls that our green-haired hero finds herself in. Yes. It was so fun translating the stylistic direction and influences of the film into a setting that I had some familiarity with. So I was just like putting in all of my favorite little things. I added that Virgin Mary in the corner, and I was like, I really ate that one up, you guys. It was also the setting that gave me the most confidence in working on this project. Like, I drew those two, and okay. I drew those two, and I remember Henry being like, "You did that?" Henry, do you remember that day? I remember that day. I was able to work on concept paintings like this hallway, as well as design sets and props and artwork. I was like, oh, I thought I was just doing paintings, but damn, I'm really like doing it all. And they would actually build it. I wish I had photos to show. Well, you could watch the film. It's coming out next week. You know what I mean? But it's wild. Okay. Working on stop-mo was actually so amazing because, again, you would give them something like this painting of a principal's office, and then the amazing talents of the art directors and fabricators would take like the 3D real-life drafts of the room. They'd create drafts of it within like a day or two, or sometimes like an afternoon. Like things could change in that room very fast. And as they would work out what the room would look like, so like, yeah, like I gave them this, and then like it was like 5 hours later, and then I saw this. Isn't that wild? I'm just exaggerating, guys. Oh my God, they're not magicians. But pretty wild. And then we would just have this ongoing conversation of like filling out that space with more detail. And then try populating that world with more and more specificity. So I have one more funny story about this is like, I gave them this drawing. Oh, I gave them this drawing, right? Like to Jason. And then Jason said, wow, this is a nice drawing. And I said, oh my God, thank you, Jason. And then he said, so who's going to design that fireplace? And who's going to do the props on the fireplace? And who's going to do the trophies in that chest? And who's going to do the things as well? And I was like, I don't know. It was me. So yeah, so while I have you here, oh my God, while I have you here, I figured I would show you my most favorite set that I designed that isn't out there on the floor, but this is my favorite set, like, it's so good. Okay, it's a detention room. Yes, and when I got the detention room assignment, I got the script, I just knew Kat and Raul they were in trouble, you guys. And there's a chalkboard involved. Oh no, I didn't get the chalkboard yet. And I just know that there are two penguin nuns there, and they're playing the piano or the accordion or something. And then they had to like escape through a window in the back. So that's all I knew. So I just started exploring things about detention rooms. I was looking into places that were held outside of classrooms because there was already a classroom being built. It was like, we have to have some more flavors out there. So I looked at like, you could have a detention in a library, you could get detention in a band room, because again, they're playing an instrument, or like a lecture hall. Lecture halls have very much crushed my spirit personally. So, so here's some concepts I did for the music room pass. So in this pass, I did these all on paper also. So I think like drawing them directly on paper helped like get those organic, fun shapes out faster. or like just doing it in traditional period was easier for that, and then taking it to digital later. But yeah, so I tried to incorporate confessional screens where I could to really push that like punishment vibe. And what I liked about music rooms were like the subtle steps and elevation that could happen. And honestly, this is the one that I really wanted to win, but it didn't. And I'm okay with that, because I think we got a way better one at the end. Yes. And then I did a library pass, and then there are more elevations happening here. And I was like, this is cute and all, but it's not perfect. And then we got into these drawings where like the levels were really dramatic, and I tried to go for something more exaggerated. This is the lecture hall vibe, and it really created this like exaggerated, almost dangerous, like cool, austere feeling that was I think Henry responded to, which I was like, yay! And then I got to this piece, which I'm very much proud of. Yay! So I drew different angles where this scene would be, and then we're getting to one of my favorite slides, the vibe. So in this room, I was like trying to go for like a medieval vibe, or not medieval, but there is a medieval energy from this vibe. Like again, the vibe of you are being punished in this lecture hall, you guys, right? Like they're being punished in here. So I wanted to fashion it with the tools of Catholic punishment, like canes, brooms. Again, the Filipino note is coming in. There is a chinelas in there for the Filipinos in the crowd. The central painting also had to exude a vibe of like true punishment. So initially, it was gonna be like Saint Michael the Archangel slaying demons, but then it turned into like this nun beating a chubby baby. Oh my god, it was like the funniest meetings at work. I really loved working on that painting. It was so funny. And then there's like that escape scene. You'll see that in the film. So this was a room with paintings of like saints suffering also, because there's like a gallery wall aspect, right? There's all those things. Again, Jason, or who is working on this room? Tom was working on this, and Tom was like, well, we need paintings. And I was like, oh my god. Anyway, so I did like saints suffering, accessing again something very familiar to me and my Catholic upbringing. So I just did like some of the girlies, living their lives. Saint Catherine with her wheel, Joan of Arc, just hanging out. And this part was so fun for me. I had so much fun. And honestly, a combination of this, observing Pablo's amazing character work, and also like following my heart it helped me like push myself to like, oh, I really want to do character design too. So now I do character design at Disney. I'm sorry, Henry. But yeah, and that leads me to the end of the show, you guys. Yay! I had learned a whole lot on being on this project, and I really owe so much of it to Henry for giving me a chance, really truly giving me a chance on this film, and entrusting the visuals with me. So I really feel proud of all the hard work the crew has made, and I truly acknowledge that it really is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So yes, I hope you guys like the film when you guys watch it. If you guys have not watched it, if you guys have watched it, yay! That's it. Woohoo!
How can a guy this silly do such seriously amazing work? It's a miracle. A wonderful miracle.
I work it through with my therapist.
All right. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we're going to get to take some questions. I'll have a few of my own, but let's start with one of your guys's. Yes, you.
Howdy. Anything. I actually had the opportunity to go and see the premiere at the Animation Film Festival the other day. It's a great movie, and I really loved and appreciate all y'all's work. You guys did an amazing job. My question is, when making the film, I noticed that the faces of when Wendell and Wild like changed depending on the angle of how they were like facing. So like, what was the back and forth like when figuring out Wendell and Wild's animation like for those kind of scenes?
Sorry.
It's kind of based on.
Sorry, let me repeat the question. What was it like figuring out the back and forth between the scenes of... I don't know. Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, sure. It's my question is like, you know, what was it like working like trying to figure out the like figuring out the faces of Wendell and Wild when they were like at different angles when
Okay.
they were talking like within their scenes because their faces would change.
Right, figuring out the angles of the faces of the characters while they're talking.
Yeah, and I actually think you projected very well, so people probably heard you.
Sorry,
It was-
Henry, can you use the mic, please?
Okay, it was in the underworld where Wendell Wild are much more bas relief and flat faces. We literally had to work off the storyboards to figure out what direction they'd be facing to tell the story, and plan carefully so that we had the available faces because it was a test period. We didn't have time to make everything we needed. And, you know, we made a few mistakes and would slice and dice a face to adjust it so it could be in there briefly. But from the storyboards, Pablo actually did some special new drawings for us. I had 2D artists who could also help work on them. But it was a fun challenge. It just came on very, very fast to figure it out. But you know, it was our first translation of Pablo's work, and I wanted it to be as close as possible to the source. And you know, I'm very happy with the result.
To follow up on that, were there any angles where you had to cheat the puppet, or was it like a completely different model?
We did a couple of one-off angles, you know, just to get an upshot. It's really hard to have totally flat faces bent over in either direction. So we did a few one-off custom faces just to give us the ability to do unique angles some of the times.
Okay. How has the industry changed in your eyes since you've done Coraline?
The biggest changes actually happened in between Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline in terms of, you know, we used to shoot on film. There was no digital comping or cleanup, heavy, big cameras, blah, blah, blah. And then in Coraline, we began shooting digitally. We could record the entire shot and see it and play it back. We could have characters jump and fly connected to programmable rigs that then could be painted out instead of using spider wire. So those are the biggest changes between then. And also me and Martin Meunier came up with the idea of using 3D printers to do in-betweens for facial expressions. In the past, we used to hand sculpt every single face, every in-between. So, you know, Jack Skellington, there's just like a lineup of 300 faces, you know, 20 per emotion, maybe 40. So we came up with this idea of using, taking those key facial expressions, scan them into the computer, have the computer in between, and then print them out. And then to go even farther, we split the face so we could have different eyebrows and eye expressions for the mouths, and that just gave us even more choices. So that was a huge breakthrough on Coraline, but from then till now, I've seen some stop motion films, not all, get so perfectly done, so much CG help for crowds and things like that, that I felt like, well, what's the point of doing stop motion animation if you can't tell the difference between that and CG? So the main thing we did was we continued to embrace, the newest programs. There's something called Dragon Frame, which Jamie Colleary and his brother invented. Jamie's an amazing animation director. It's was invented for stop motion. Everybody in the world uses it now. There's student prices and so forth. So there's been many advances, but the main thing we did was go backwards and make it more handmade, leave the seams in. We don't paint them out because in 5 minutes you don't even notice them. We didn't do everything on ones, shooting 24 separate poses all the time for the character's motion. We did what they do at Aardman Animation, shooting more in twos, like maybe 12 poses, and even threes, just 8 per second for certain things. We left a lot of small mistakes in, and we call it charm. Henry, is that a mistake or is that charm? Charm. I'd say that's really important, and I'm really proud of what we did. But additionally, on the story in this movie and working it out with Jordan Peele, I wanted it to have more real stuff that matters, the emotional arc of our protagonists. I wanted to just be deeper, darker, carry more weight than most animated films. There's real-life social issues. The film's not about them, but it's sort of an undergirding to the fantasy and horror. The bottom line was, let's make our story and characters so compelling that the smoothness of the animation doesn't matter at all.
That's great. Yeah, I love the handmade quality of everything. But kind of going along with that, how much CG do you allow, if any?
It's not that I'm against CG. It's not in my religion. But I mean, I'll go back to Coraline. There were several scenes in that, for anyone who's seen that film, where it would have made good sense to use CG to create an auditorium, filled with 150 Scotty dogs, or a jumping mouse circus that does a whole marching band routine. And my attitude back then was simply, it'll just be bad CG. We can't do what Pixar or any of the other experts do. Let's do those and find a way to cheat it, to make it not too complex, but do it stop motion. So all those jumping mice playing their instruments, they're replacement cycles. So there's like 6 little poses that repeat over and over as they're blowing their instruments and hopping around. The dogs, there was sort of a hierarchy of dogs that actually have to do something and ones that just can move their heads. So that was a critical moment where, no, I'm not going CG because it won't be special. In this film, we mainly use CG for elements like fire, mist, nature, shifting clouds and skies. We used digital to comp in backgrounds, whereas in the past, I wanted to always build the full world. Well, we really couldn't afford to do that. We built all the interiors, but almost all the exteriors are partial sets with animated characters and then set extensions, skies. We use CG to have, moving water. We really used it primarily for atmosphere. But where we used it for a scene, there's something called the redemption chamber. There was one image of Kenny's early on where there's sort of a frightening shadow of Cat on the wall inside this brick-lined room. I came up with a sequence where Cat has to face her demons, her shadow self, the Jungian idea that you can't ignore all the parts. You have to embrace all the parts of who you are and everything you've ever done. And I wanted the idea of like her, with the help of Sister Helly, her shadow would be projected on the wall and transform, and she would sort of relive and interact with these critical moments of her life. I wanted it to feel like a shadow play, and there was a beautiful design for that, which was actually done by David Trumbull, one of our storyboard artists. Kenny had deserted us for Disney. No.
Not the booze.
No, I gave him a pass. You know the rule. You never quit. It's fine to be fired in this business because, there's differences of artistic opinions. But anyway, David was like one of the last artists standing, and he did the storyboards and ended up designing it, inspired by Pablo's work, what Kenny had done. But in the end, we used computer animation. We built rigs for the shadows and then broke the rigs. It was always about don't let the CG and what it does easily drive what we do. We forced it to do what I wanted. And it's not that hard. And so that sequence meshes beautifully with the rest of the movie. It doesn't feel out of place at all. That's how we use CG.
Awesome, thank you very much. Like you mentioned earlier, I really love how the film tackles some more challenging and difficult themes. Was that there from the very beginning, from the inception of the film, or how has the story sort of evolved, and what were some of the other versions?
It wasn't there at the very beginning 20 years ago. But when, brought that story out of mothballs and started working on it with Jordan, I just, I realized these movies don't come along that often. I didn't want to just do sort of a feel-good film, something disposable. I wanted to bring in serious issues. I wanted things to be darker and stronger. My wife Heather, who's here tonight, she's had 3 careers so far, and the last one, for over 10 years, she got a master's to be an advocate for special needs kids, which includes kids in trouble, mental issues, trouble issues, kids that could be pushed out of school and right into the school-to-prison pipeline. So because of her work, I was knowledgeable about that and did more research, and that became something in Cat's past. And I also was aware of the private prison system in this country, which is still legal in many states. And when it came time to figure out what do our villains do for a living, and it was never going to be the demons or monsters who were the villains, it was always going to be humans, because they are the worst villains. They started out just being developers who would destroy beautiful old towns and put up condos or something, but between the school-to-prison pipeline and this awareness I had of private prisons, it became that's what they do. They build private prisons where they warehouse prisoners, so much money a month per head, shitty food, terrible medical, no rehabilitation. But even that wasn't bad enough, so they're also murderers. And yeah, I wanted to anchor the film in some real life stuff underneath the fantasy and invention and a lot of comedy. And Jordan was especially good at knowing the right amount. I call him the tone master of tone. How much is too much? What's going to be a red flag for people to attack the movie, and what's going to be just the underpinnings. So that's, it was you know, I don't know if I'll get to make another movie. I'm going to put some stuff in this one that matters.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This one might be for Kenny. Can you talk a bit about, I really love the way color is used in this film. Can you guys talk a bit about the intentions and the sort of color selections?
Wow. I just remember the most iconic ones is that purple and green were the indicator of the supernatural initially. There was already a lot of colors that were already set up for me when I first got onto the film. And so it was mostly like going in there and just leaning into it. And if there wasn't a space where a certain color was, if I was given a new one, for instance, Mariana's kitchen or Raul's mother's kitchen, I would insert a new color. So I was like, okay, we're gonna get into our yellow era to get that sense of comfort and warmth, where Raul would find like maybe a break or solace. And then I'd reintroduce that sense of comfort in the Restaurant Brewery, because we've seen, I think prior there may have been a lot of scenes already, or artwork already, where that rusty color was used to be more warm. But yeah, it was a lot of like filling in spaces. I think the blue for the school was probably, I don't know, that was right before I came in, or like during it being made. I think Katie made that call. Yeah.
The brewery was, what was her name? Illustrator.
Jen Ely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she used most of the blue there. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the other spaces that were special. I know at some point we were trying to push for like the reflective thing of black ice. What else is there? I'm trying to think of the other scenes. But yeah.
You finish. I just want to add something when you're done.
Oh, I think I'm good.
You know, what Kenny said at the first start was the purple and green were sort of what represented the demonic and underworld, and that's Kat's green hair when she gets infected and things glow green. Well, as you saw in the trailer, she's a Hell Maiden, and she has this connection to the underworld and to the demonic, and so that's how that particular color was used. We wanted to keep it pretty simple, and so that when we were going to change the color, some of the things that Kenny came up with, it would have impact. I've just always learned too loud all the time it's all the same. I mean, anything overused loses its power and presence. You know, like a beautiful moment of the vans driving through town, it's winter, and you do a close-up of the tire breaking through an ice puddle and splashing. That fills in the whole scene, and you get a sense of everything. But if you did it 50 times, people would just be bored. So I'm just saying that there was sort of a simple, clear idea, going back to Lou Romano, of just a few of the colors and how we would connect the worlds. And for Kat to be a Hell Maiden, it's one of those, well, she could choose to be demonic and be bad, or take another path.
Great. I love the cast. This question might be for Pablo. Is how did you guys decide which characters to capture the likenesses of, and which ones to sort of create new?
Well, at the beginning, when the first decision was that Wet and Wild look like Key and Peele. That was the main important thing in the movie. Not the main important thing in the movie, but it was kind of the start of the movie. They are Key and Peele, so that's the first thing, and the other was well, as I told you, Henry found this way to that we can work together, and he gives me some names, and I try. At first, they look very much like these names, like Marlon Brando, and or James Holmes. In the case of James Holmes, it was because he was doing the voice of the character too. But in the case of Brando and others, we started with a real person, and then we changed it that so they don't look exactly like this person. But it was, as I told, it was different in any case because some of them are more like real people and some not.
Yeah, there's, as Pablo had said earlier, almost everybody is based on something, some obscure photo someone I found or a combination. Pablo's daughters happen to be a couple of the students at RBC school. There's a few other people we know. The puppet manager, she's one of the brattier girls. But the thing for me, I love that at the center, our protagonist is not based on anyone. We tried various things, but Kat is really inspired by what Pablo found, on his path with these amazing African sculptures, and that Raoul is also not based on a real person, but inspired by Mesoamerican artwork, the Toltecs, Aztecs, and Mayan art in particular. And I just think they fit in with everyone else. They're really beautiful, but they don't remind you of anybody at all. It's okay. I mean, people in animation, we always are inspired by something, that film Up, the crazy explorer, the dangerous explorer in whatever the land that was inspired by Kirk Douglas and changed a bit. We all do it because it's shorthand. But anyway, I just wanted to add that how special those two characters are, and everyone else is a little more closely related to something real.
Thank you. Which character was the most difficult to nail down, that took the longest?
The most difficult for me was the octopus. The octopus was very difficult because I'm used to human faces, but I'm not used to octopus at all. So the octopus was very hard, and I don't know. We have some back and forward with Klaxon, with this guy.
Yeah, Lane.
But it was not very hard. Actually, I have fun doing every character except for this octopus. I really hate it.
Octopus, in the trailer there's a little bit of it, but it's based on a real animal, a mimic octopus. But it's combining like all the different types of mimic octopuses. So it's really like 8 octopuses, 8 different designs.
Yeah.
They can transform their shapes and colors to protect themselves or hide from predators or prey.
Yeah, but he has no nose, and that bothers me a lot.
Awesome. All right, let's take some from the audience. Let's see. All right, we'll start from the back end. Go ahead, you. Yeah. All right, so the question was, sorry.
What's the translation of such flat graphic art to 3D, and you assumed it went directly to CG, but it didn't. Damon Bard, one of the sculptors I mentioned earlier, he hand sculpted with clay tons and tons of key expressions, of key and peel. The first designs, there's at least 5 or 6 different ways we went based on Pablo's artwork, of, hyper scary, maybe softer. And he learned to work that way. It was a new thing, but very successful. And then from those were scanned, and then we printed out the sizes of the faces that we wanted. It's not a brand new thing. Going back to Nightmare Before Christmas, it's something Tim Burton was always interested in, of having almost flat layers and backgrounds. His thing was that he always wanted a sense of texture on them. So there's, exteriors in Nightmare Before Christmas and layers of hills, and then we came up with these little rollers to sort of lay in textures as if it had been hand-drawn all over it. So I've got a long history and familiarity of having 2D elements in a 3D world. It was especially hard, though, because the danger was losing what Pablo's so good at. So it was definitely a struggle, but there was handmade sculptures that, right from the very beginning, that was the first step. What is the future of stop motion in this country? For me, I've got a real kind of long historical view. We do Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was done for a low budget. At the time, it made its money back, is considered a hit. And then before James the Giant Peach is completed, Toy Story is done, and everyone assumes that, oh, it's because it's CG that it's so successful. CG didn't hurt, but it's because it's a fucking great story with amazing characters. But the small brains always assume, well, what can we buy to duplicate that? And so Jeffrey Katzenberg eventually gets into CG animation and DreamWorks, and he finds his formula. For me, here's the good news, that because of streaming, we don't have to live or die on opening weekend. I have had success. Nightmare, when it opened in the country almost 30 years ago, it was #1 for maybe a week. James the Giant Peach was #2. Coraline opened further down, but then it started moving up when people found it. But that's a very risky thing to do when you're going up against, these Marvel films, the Star Wars films and all of that, where people are going to pay for a huge experience. Stop motion doesn't necessarily stand much of a chance. But with streaming, there's time for an audience to find the film. The word can get out. We still want you to see the film if you haven't seen it. And, again, there's only one theater in Hollywood, but it'll be on Netflix. We do have a much better chance. It doesn't have to reach everybody opening weekend. It can find its audience. And the fact is, right now, there's our film. There's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is beautiful. I haven't seen all of it, but I've seen most of it. It's incredible looking. Very, very different. A lot of friends worked on it. It was also shot up in Portland, Oregon, where we made our film. And I kind of feel that right now is one of the best times for stop motion, if people support it. If people watch our film, and that Aardman Animation is they're doing another sequel to really good film. It's from a long time ago. Chicken Run. They've I think they've completed that, or they're very close. They found an actor to voice the voice of Wallace, and they're doing another Wallace and Gromit film. So I think, again, if we get the support right now, and look, I mean, Leica's going to go on forever because they make gorgeous movies, really fantastic, but it doesn't matter if they're not financially successful because Travis Knight loves stop motion so much, he's going to keep it going. I do wish more people went out to see them, and maybe if their films were streaming, they could also be more financially successful. So I would say I might be wrong, but at this time in history, I think it's kind of the best place for stop motion animation that it's ever been.
All right. We'll go you first, and then we'll go that way. Yeah, you in the hat.
In the film, there are some huge character rigs. How long did those rigs take to build? And also, did any of you help out with designing the theme park or the booger rooms found in that huge?
So how long did some of the rigs take the huge character rigs take to build, and the design of the theme?
Oh, I think you'd be surprised. In the film, there's stop motion characters. They tend to average in sizes, not probably smaller than 3-4 inches, 20 inches tall or long or something. It just becomes very problematic. Oogie Boogie was bigger than that, and people sprained their wrists animating Oogie Boogie because he was so hard to muscle around. There's really not many huge rigs. We do use rigs to support characters, to fly them or jump them. In the case of our main villain, Irmgard Klaxon, she has impossibly small feet and high heels, which could never support her, but now we can actually walk her on a rig, something metal that's connected to something overhead. You might be able to dial it up and down. And very, very talented people create the rigs, working hand in hand with the animators. How long? It just depends. It's more flying rigs. Like there's a scene where the demons escape from the underworld, and they're kind of flying with the help of these strange birds, and building the track and the rig for that was very complicated, and that took 2 months to build that. But for those giant hands, which because there's a giant, and a couple of times you want the puppets to interact with a part of him, just like the original King Kong from the 1930, and Fay Wray is captured in her apartment in New York by a big gorilla hand. We made giant hands. Those are not, they're on rigs that could move them up and down, but all the animation is beautiful joints that are animated by hand. So it's an important job on our films. Riggers, indispensable. They're engineers, machinists. Some of them work with motion control. So it's super valued, and those are the answers.
I'll get to you 1 second. I had a quick question. It sounds like you're still very in it and very technical, like all your know-how and stuff. Did you actually get to animate anything at all?
I haven't animated in years. I mean, long, long ago, I learned to hire people better than myself at every single task, so the only job left was to direct.
Sounds good. Okay, yes, you, go ahead.
I actually have a question for Pablo. For your character designs for the characters,
So the question was, what cultures were those masks inspired by, or where they were found?
Yeah, what tribal, like, tribal cultures did you derive the sub-Saharan masks from?
Well, actually, I don't, as there are African masks that inspire cat face. I don't know exactly what tribe or something, but because I don't know much about African mask. I would use Google and put African mask there, and there came a lot of African masks, and we decided base it on the shapes, uh, but but not in the culture, Uh, but and the same with this Indo-American thing that we use for Raul. I remember there was a name of a guy. It was a sculptor that was his work was based on this mask, and the name is, I think is Jose Pinos, something like this.
I mean, it was more on the stone carvings of Mesoamerican native societies. And we have the information. I think several of the masks that Pablo presented to me were made in Ghana. But at the end, it was more just what works for our characters. So we didn't, go deep down and it's authentically this. It's what feels right, and did cast a wide net and blended a few things. But yeah, there's absolutely specific cultures that were looked at. In the end, it doesn't really matter because we found what we needed to inspire him.
All right, got some new hands. You first.
I was wondering if there is a specific reason why you left like the division of where you put the eyes on like the puppets. That I found it super interesting when I saw the trailer and everything.
Yeah, it's something I touched on earlier. We left the seam line in our characters' faces between the upper face and the lower face, and it's most noticeable on the bridge of the nose. But it also comes around out the side of the eyes. Sometimes it's not as noticeable there. The feeling was I want to show off that these faces are replaced, that this is animated by hand instead of cleaning it up and making it perfect and shiny like we did back on Coraline. I'm sort of tired of the clean and shiny. I think that it's better to show off, the crude technology that we use, and have the audience sit up to pay attention, help bring these characters to life with us. So that's why it's just.
It goes well with Pablo's designs too. So.
Yeah, it's all Pablo. That's why.
All right, yes.
Okay, here's my question. What's the first step of getting your idea from your head into workable for animation? Because I have a lot of stories in my head, but where's the first step you have to take to like make it reality? It goes for any one of you maybe. Like how do you get your idea out there, like into the physical, like you can see it?
How do you go
Like
idea to art?
yeah, anyone.
Oh my god, have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons? I have found that going from, because it's a lot of work, right? Obviously, sketching, we love drawing, da 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 da. I do it for my day job, obviously, and that's a lot of work. I think I'm gonna go back home and like draw my own little personal things after it. Some people do. Actually, maybe a lot of you do. We're in Gallery Nucleus, so yeah. But I think it depends on your like bandwidth and what you're trying to like really get out of the project. I had found that like this is just me advertising for Dungeons and Dragons, but I think like having these long-term stories in my head, like just shared with even like a small group of like 4 or 5 people, and just getting it out there and then having everyone be invested in it has alleviated the stress off my back. And then it also gives me confidence in like pitching other ideas and bringing that into the workplace, or like going forward with like investing time into other projects. I mean, I would just say, I guess, if you want to put things into reality, the first stuff that you have to do is to actually just do it, because there is no risk in trying. And also having very meticulous scheduling. I actually am an advocate for scheduling, and I think it's great. Deadlines. Having a mild deadline, a soft deadline, or even like a hard deadline is very important, I think, because it gives you the sense of danger. Can I make it? Which is how I felt when I made this presentation. So yeah, I think having a deadline, being excited about your project, being able to, knowing that you could share with others, and having the confidence to pull it off, those are the like important things to like put it down on paper.
Pablo, how do you get an idea out? You know, you think of something, and what's your process?
Actually, my process is to have a lot of free time, you know? No, really, because my wife doesn't understand this, but I need to be around the house, you know, playing ukulele, looking some pictures in Netflix or wherever, so I can have an idea and then go to work. But if I only work all the time, it doesn't work. So I need a lot of free time, and it's hard to my wife to understand that, because she thinks I'm always, you know, doing nothing around the house.
I just want to add to that. There's kind of two approaches in my mind to creativity. It's thinking, and really formulating in your mind. The composer of the score of our film, Bruno Coulet, he can go on a plane flight and he can compose in his mind. He can hear the harmonies and of the different instruments, and he'll memorize what he's composed, and then he can get to his computer or keyboard and put it down. I'm not that kind of creative person. I need to, I do a lot of research, and I need to put a bunch of stuff out in front of me. Images. I make a big mess, and then from it, I sort of piece together, I think, sort of best image ideas. And then there's something else I do that's similar to Pablo. I also write, and it's a real thing, writer's block, where you're under deadline and you know what you're writing is garbage. So many years ago, but you could go out for a walk and you could think about something, and maybe you'd have a brainstorm, but by the time you got back, what was it? What did I think of? So I think I'm one of the first people who ever did it. I strapped my laptop onto a treadmill, like 15 years ago, and I've never stopped, because I'm not running, but I can walk, and just that extra blood flow, it has helped me through virtually any writer's block I've ever had since then, or any creative blockage at all. Blood flow and deadlines. Those are my answers.
Those are great. That's great tips. Get your. All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's go from here. Yes. Go ahead.
Congratulations.
I got.
You win. Yeah.
I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to thank all of you for creating a character that represents someone like me. When I first saw Kat, I identify as like an Afro punk in my daily life, and I just saw her and was like, oh my god, that's me. Yeah. And I immediately put together this outfit.
Okay, as
Kenny.
okay. For me, well, I don't know. As I told you, I know nothing about animation, and because my first movie was in the middle of this pandemic thing we all have to go through. I don't know if things works this way all the time or if this is a special case. But I see this doing a movie uh, there's a lot of people working together, and I compare this with orchestra, like a musical orchestra, you know. So I am the guy who played the I don't know the fagot. What do you play?
What do I
So
play?
this is fagot. How do you say fagot?
First chair violinist.
Okay, I
Or the bassoonist.
the bassoonist.
And I used to play saxophone.
Okay, perfect. So this is my instrument, and the guy who runs the whole thing is a director, and director is Henry. He knows he's involved in every part of the movie, and I do my thing, and after I did my thing, of course with Henry, I leave these illustrations for a lot of people who knows better than me what they are doing, and then comes Kenny, and Kenny did his thing. So I didn't have an interaction with Kenny, and Kenny, well, I guess he saw my pictures first, so then the interaction, I guess it was that, but I don't know.
No, we had to keep them apart from each other. I sense a chemical reaction of a dangerous
You know,
nature.
The prophecy.
A little wolf and a little lion can fight each other. You know,
Yeah,
stage.
that's what our last names are. Okay, anyways. But I would think, oh wait. Slay. So the difference between illustration, visual development, and design, no? I think I considered the work that I did was under the same category as visual development. We were developing the visuals, you know what I mean? And I think even though I was given the title of illustrator, what it ultimately came down to with design was just communication and storytelling, right? I ultimately wanted to just provide images that served the fabrication department and the needs of story on what the director was telling me. And that's for every design animation gig, no? You're ultimately trying to imbue the intent of whoever the storyteller is through pictures that you could just get on the first kind of glance. When you just look at the picture and you're like, I know that vibe, then you know that you are doing it. That's my sweet answer.
Actually, kind of follow up on that. How much, when you came onto the movie, how much of the world was already developed? You mentioned, I'm drawing Lou Romano, yeah. Did you alter some of that, or were you just sort of continuing to work off of that stuff?
There was probably 20% done at that point, visually.
But it was pretty raw.
It was really raw. No, so I would go over there. For instance, the Scream Fair. There had already been a lot of, or not a lot, but there was already work done. There was already so I knew where the flavor had to be at, and then I would revisit that maybe a year and a bit later. I had my hand on my fingers, and my whole fist was in the proverbial pie. There was a lot of work. And yeah, so yeah, Lou had just maybe a few pieces for, I remember Scream Fair was a lot, and then there was already a few pieces in the school, but for the most, and then a few things, I think for the cemetery, but for the most part, we were just going through it. We were, yeah.
Cool, thank you. All right, take some more. Yes, you.
I've always been a fan of ready-mades stuff. Like, here's a cool weed I walk by every day on my way to lunch. I'm going to break it off and spray it with something that'll preserve it, and it's in the movie. I found these, I hadn't seen them before, smoke trees. Do you know what smoke trees are? But their blossoms are so fine and delicate, they're like smoke. And discovered those on Coraline, and they're in every movie. That's the law. So they're certainly in this. There's a short sequence that was part of the opening of the film. Ultimately, it didn't work. It's the idea of journeying. We have two times we sort of go from the surface of the earth to the underworld and the other direction. One's more like an ant farm, and the other feels like you're going through layers, buried Viking ships and dinosaur bones, early UFOs, whatever. But it's in the credit sequence at a really good place. That was somebody just got the idea of finding incredible roots, real roots that were like 30 feet long, and kind of weaving them together with the art of these objects, then coming up with amazing lighting and a camera move to move through those layers. So, I love using practical stuff. We hand make so much. It's nice to spice the film, like the popcorn as cherry blossoms.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we're going to ask the last question now. So, for each of you guys, what is one sort of takeaway or something that you want the audience to notice when watching the film or after watching the film?
Kenny.
Oh my gosh, we should look at the paintings in the detention room. I hope there's some really fun ones in there. I did this one. It was Judith killing Holofernes, and it's a big slay. I love that one. I don't have it in this presentation, but I really like that one. And yeah. The other things, you should look at the tombstones too. Those are really fun. I remember there was a part where it was like, oh my god, you could put like, who wants their name written in the tombstone was like going around on the Slack channels. It was a very coveted spot. And I was like, oh my god, I want one. I didn't get it then. But then after I went back to the rap party, and then the AD came to me and was like, I have your tombstone. And I was like, oh. And it says, Kenneth Lenocito, something something age, something something date, da 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 da. And then it says, we stand. And I was like, ah. So anyways, I don't know if it's in the film, but I know it is out there somewhere. Yeah.
I don't have nothing in particular. I want people notice. I just want they to have fun and see the movie and have fun and so maybe if we are lucky we can make another.
For me, there's no one particular thing. It's mainly that it's entertaining, surprising, that there's quite a few original thoughts and images in it that I would think people would love to gobble up, and then mainly that it's worth talking about, that you see it with family members or friends or whomever, and I'd like to think that there's enough in there that you'll want to then go have coffee or a drink or a walk and like chew on the movie and discuss it for a good long while, and then maybe watch it again.
All right. Thank you guys very much.